So, are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Can I start? Ivo, you want to say something before? I don't know. Well,
no, I think you can start. You can make the introduction and then.
Okay. So, very good. Thank you. I hope you see me and hear me well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this initiative. Thank you very much for being active today on for the Union of European Federalists in Prague, and thank you also for the subject that you have chosen, which is the key issue, the key topics, I would say, today in Europe. And everything is said in your title. Democracy is Europe, remember to revive. Because I think that today we have an outstanding, open, difficult challenge about democracy today in Europe. And I think that talking about the last 30 years and talking about what happened in Europe after the end of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Berlin Wall, I think it's very timely and very important. I would have for you more questions than answers, because you have lived directly this process. You have lived directly the passage from the Soviet Union to democracy and to the free accession to the European Union. So you know much more better than me what did that process imply, what went well, what went right, and what went wrong about what happened in the last 30 years. On my side, I would like to share with you some thoughts about how do I see the situation today, and about why I think we made the right decision at that time. And I start from the second point. We made the right decision at that time because the European project was conceived since the very beginning, was proposed in the manifesto of Altiero Spinelli, the Manifesto Ventotene on the United States of Europe, always as a project for the whole continent. Never as a project for the happy few. It was conceived during the Second World War as a project to ensure peace, democracy, and prosperity to the whole continent in a moment where the whole continent were under the oppression of the Nazi and fascist forces. So for me, it was natural that at the moment of the fall of the Berlin Wall, together with the democratic process in, at the time, Czechoslovakia and in other countries, in parallel to the internal democratic process, we opened also a European process, a European perspective, a European integration process that led you to join the European Union together with other democracies for Central and Eastern Europe in 2004. Was it the process too short or too long? I don't know. I don't know. I think we, having lived the process from the inside, because I was member of the cabinet of the president of the European Commission at the time. I was member of the cabinet of President Prodi, who was the one who was the most committed for on the enlargement with Central and Eastern Europe. I can tell you that we tried to speed up as much as we could, and at the same time being rightly demanding about the compliance with the famous Copenhagen criteria, with the criteria of principle of democratic principle, rule of law, fundamental rights, social market economy, etc. And at the time, we made a choice of trying to accept the Central European and Eastern European countries as a bloc, I think that it was geopolitically and historically the right decision. I think that history chose them more than we did, and the choice of history was clear. Now there are two things that I think one went wrong at that time, and the other one is going wrong today. What went wrong at that time is that the European Union wasn't ready to accept 10 + 2 Malta and Cyprus new countries without an important reform of its functioning, of its governance, of its institutions. There was at the time, since the 90s, a debate whether deepening or enlarging, and we had said that we should have enlarged while deepening the European Union. The enlargement happened. The real deepening didn't happen. The real deepening didn't happen because of the rejection of the Constitutional Treaty in 2005 by France and by the Netherlands, because that was the rejection also for reasons which were mainly domestic reasons more than European reason, but was the rejection also of an ideal push of a constitutional dimension, of a political dimension of our union, of the symbols, and was certainly something which froze the political and idealistic push around the new union and around enlargement. We know that technically, legally, a good part of the Lisbon Treaty was, of the Constitutional Treaty was introduced in the Lisbon Treaty, but politically, we had lost momentum. Politically, we had enlarged without deepening the European Union. And this is the first reason of the problem we have today. It is clear that this union cannot properly and effectively function with 27 member states, with a veto right, with a not enough developed role of the European Parliament, with many issues, important issues, which are still decided by unanimity, without a real foreign policy on the main geopolitical challenges, without a real defense policy. It's not that we are not doing anything, but we haven't done enough. We haven't done enough because this political deepening was lost. And that went wrong, and is still an open question. And this is why also we are now discussing within the Conference of the Future of Union, because we need to reform the Union. And this is an issue also for the next enlargement in the future with the Western Balkans. We are not ready today to enlarge the Union without a reform. The other issue is that today we have democratic challenges coming from within some member states of the European Union. We have an open issue in Hungary. We have an open issue in Poland. According to the European Commission, according to the European Parliament, according to the Council of Europe, according to the European Commissioner for Human Rights, there are serious risks or verified violation of rule of law, democratic principle, freedom of speech, protection of minorities, independence of the magistrature in Hungary and in Poland. And because of the dysfunctioning, of the ineffectiveness of the way the European Union works, we don't have enough instrument today to act and to react about this. And this is the political issues. And this is my question to you. And then I stop and I leave you. How come, in your view, how did it happen? How there could be this democratic regression in a country deeply European and so strongly linked to the European history, such as Poland and Hungary? I mean, for me, it is impossible to think of a Europe without Poland. But when we listen to the speech of the Polish Prime Minister here in Brussels before the European Parliament, we were in Strasbourg, sorry, before the European Parliament, I couldn't recognize the Poland that I'm a friend of. couldn't recognize the Poland of my friend Bronislaw Geremek. We are a different generation, but I'm very proud to say that we were close friends. When I look at Hungary of Viktor Orban, of Fidesz, I cannot recognize the Hungary which was a big protagonist of the fall of the Iron Curtain. So how did it come? How could it happen? Nobody forced nobody forced the Poles and the Hungarians to join the European Union. I remember one day I was in Lithuania with President Prodi. We were at the University of Vilnius. It was a young student who say, well, what are you talking about? What is this European Union? I was under the dictatorship of the Soviet Union. I don't want another union again. And our answer was, well, we don't recall the date when Lithuania democratically and freely decided to join the Soviet Union. Whereas we know that they're going to freely and democratically join the European Union. And the same was for Poland and Hungary. But what went wrong today? Why? This is the question. And I don't have a real answer to this. Certainly, I don't share the idea of conceiving sovereignty at national level. Sovereignty is at national level, but to regain sovereignty on issues such as digital, climate change, defense, fight against global terrorism, to be really sovereign, we must pull sovereignty at European level. So this is why the issue of sovereignty is a real issue. But if you want to take back control, we don't have to do like the Brexiteers did, exit, leaving the European Union, or fighting, opening a fight of sovereignty between Poland and the European Union. If you want to be really sovereign, challenged by China, challenged by India, challenged by Brazil, challenged by United States, challenged by the future of Africa, challenged by issues which are global, continentally global. We Europeans, we have to put sovereignty in some key fields, be it defense, security, foreign policy, space policy, migration issues. But I mean, so I don't share this nationalistic approach to the idea of sovereignty. But why in these societies today there is this deception, there is this disaffection, there is this disbelief in the European Union by a part of the society, because you got also another part of society who react, who demonstrate in the street. But why? This is the issue. And I count on you to give me the answer, because I don't have the real answer.
Sandro, I can. Sorry.
You can tell it later. I will. They tell me it is recorded, so I will see your answer. But now I have to leave you. Thank you very much for this initiative, and thank you very much for the answer that we will provide to my question. I wish you a very good seminar.
Okay. See you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Okay, welcome here. You are also welcomed by President of the Union of European Federalists, by Sandro Gozzi, who was here. I'm very happy to see you. I'm very happy that I was invited to speak here and to moderate this panel. I would like to introduce also the other speaker who will be here after Sandro Gozzi spoke. It's Mr. Ivo Kaplan, who is from the Czech Republic, and he is, I think, since 2001, Secretary General of this European Union of European Federalists in the Czech Republic. He is a member of the Federal Committee of this union, and he is saying something more about his past. He is graduated as an engineer in Czech Technical University, Electrotechnical College. And it's interesting that he's from this Czech Technical University where I am just now working and also being there, but not on Electrotechnical College, but because I'm political scientist, but I'm in a Masaryk Institute of Advanced Studies of this Czech Technical University. So I will chair this panel. I was asked also because I'm a political scientist and I worked for a long time on transitions to democracy. It was my topic that I elaborated quite a lot to give some historical understanding. And then I will ask Mr. Kaplan to give his position. I'm not very sure whether we shall answer the questions of Sandro he raised here, although they are quite interesting, I'm sure, but I hope we will have space to open the questions and answers from you and to give space for you to speak. And we have something like 1 hour for this discussion, so I really hope that we will have chance. It's true that I'm, as a professor on the university, I used to speak and I have to think about that there are no 90 minutes for me now to have a lecture. Yeah. So this is what I have to control. If I will speak too long, show me, yeah, that's okay. Important, okay, yeah, because I will not control my time, yeah. So, okay, it's very difficult topic, and to answer the question why we witness backsliding of democracies in Central Eastern Europe, in post-communist countries, there was mentioned Hungary and Poland, but in fact we can see the same processes or very similar processes in Romania, in Bulgaria. We can see the things and many troubles in the Czech Republic, the tendencies that, I'm still sure that we are in the still liberal democracy, but we can see some negative tendencies here. We can see that even in Slovenia, as I know from understanding of the problem. So it's all over the post-communist countries that are having problems, and they have to really try to control the processes and to say what's happening, why. Maybe you will be here, you will have also some visit in Prague and to commemorate some things connected with the revolution. And as I see a lot of young people that are not and do not remember revolution, it is, it was quite interesting period from the point of view of historical crossroads. Like, there are moments in the history, crossroad, that this was clear. It was a crossroad that no one did expect. Everybody was sure that there will be fall of communism, but no one knew when. And then it started, and it's really paradox. It started in Poland with a lot of protests. In fact, communist regime in Poland has never been able to stabilize itself. The second was Hungary. These two countries were the most liberal in among communist countries, even after coup d'etat that was done in Poland in 1981. Czechoslovakia in that time, rather late. It was only after fall of Berlin Wall. It happened in November 17th, when many countries in the regions where the communists fell down. And it went very quickly. It was a very fast process that happened. And there was a big enthusiasm. One among the slogans that were here present were "Back to Europe." It was important thing. Russia is not Europe. Well, it is. But it was like understanding we are part of Western Europe. We are part of that culture, of that historical tradition. And in some sense, the Czechs were right in this tradition, because Czechoslovakia, between the two wars, was like in 30s, the only democratic state among the others in Central and Eastern Europe. So there was a deep liberal and democratic tradition. And that enthusiasm was really by scientists saying, end of history. There will be liberal democracy everywhere. It was Fukuyama who presented this idea. And there are several scholars who said, it won't be as easy. It is, we we are challenged by processes that has never happened before. Here's there were transitions to democracy in Spain, or after World War II, there were many transitions to democracy. There were in Southern Europe in the 70s, it was Spain, Portugal, it was Greece, for change, and there was liberalization. But never has happened such a deep transition, because there was, in fact, triple transition. There was political transition, that means changing the constitutions and so on. But there was also economic transition, that, there were 90% of any ownership was state-owned ownership. There was necessary, there was economy that was controlled by the state and organized by the state. How to get it into the market, and how to form politically the market. Market developed during the centuries, but now by political decision you can do market, can make it, how to make it, and how you will form capitalists without capital. So it was really extremely difficult task, and there was one other process and one other transition, and this was redefinition of the nation state. What will be the state guard? Foreign orientation, East or West? So today you can see that in politics of Central and Eastern Europe. Then there was a question how to rebuild federations. There are federalists here. There were 3 federations. Yugoslavia, that finished in bloody war. Soviet Union, that was not so tragical, but not very peaceful in many cases. And then velvet divorce in Czechoslovakia. There was no ability of the political elites, who were not experienced and so on, to discuss new forms of federalism, because the federalism that was there, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, Soviet Union, was centralized federalism. When the decision-making was done by Communist Party, you could have 2 parliaments, you could have everything, but Central Committee of the Communist Party or Politburo decided about everything, so it was not as important how it is built. But this experience has some impact on political reforms. There were adapted constitutions that look nice, perfect. You could use some constitutions, you can draft some. But there was totally underestimated institutions. And Sandra spoke about that. This is something very important for also thinking about European deepening of Europe. There was not understand what does it mean, checks and balances. What is, the word was not known here. What does it mean? Accountability. It's not only responsibility. Accountability means something else. It is you are giving accounts. You are not only saying what you do, what you did, but how you did it. This word you will not find in Slavic languages, but also not in Romance languages. It's Anglo-Saxon conception. But Western countries like put it. Oversight institutions. There were built oversight institutions that was recommended. But the chairs of the institutions were very often the friends of some other friends, and, have some context, conflict of interest. What is it? Nobody knew here. And these were 90s, when there was formed privatization, formation of the market. And there was a question whether we came to Europe too long, too early, or too late. Sandra spoke about that from the point of view of European Union. It is quite, for me, it was quite interesting because I'm all the time watching that from the point of view of the Czech Republic or Central and Eastern Europe. So this was also a historical problem that there was necessary to do deepening and enlarging of European Union. And in the same time, in the moment when the new elites, new institutions, new maybe clientelism was formed, it was in the 90s. And the pressure and real accession process started only at the end of 90s. Many cards are right there. From this point of view, it was true. During the accession process, many countries did a lot of reforms. It looks nice. Institutions, everything is, but the logic of the working of the institutions was quite different. And what we saw, and there are nice analyses on Bulgaria, Romania, but the same Poland, Czech Republic, after accession process, after all the tasks were done, there started step-by-step dismantlement of these things, control of justice, the things like that. Yeah, so this was like vice versa process that started in that time. For many real liberal democrats, is European in Central and Eastern Europe, it is European Union that supposing, yes, thanks God, we are here, and if we were not here, it would be a really big problem. But we have to think that it's also our task, that no one will do it from Europe for us, that it's really necessary to work on returning back on good track, not thinking about this to prevent this backsliding. But still, I think that a lot of people do not understand the big problem, and it is a little bit boring problem. Building of the institutions, building of the state. And if you want to do something, you have really necessary to have effective institutions. At the same task as Sandro mentioned here in the European Union. So I think that this can be for introduction, like as a political scientist, some thoughts we were doing.
The time was exact, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So,
okay.
Ivo, it's the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Vladimira. Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, friends. I would like to start with a half response to Sandro Gozzi, because I was in the morning in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where was the symposium on intercultural and interreligious dialogue. And there were many interesting speeches, but the main star was the most famous priest in the Czech Republic, Tomáš Halík. And he mentioned in his general speech on this possible relations in the world and how to do in the next future. He said very simply that this Mr. Orbán, these Polish leaders, especially Mr. Kaczynski, they misuse the traditional values. They use it for wrong purpose. It's very interesting that practically the idea which was one of the backgrounds of three enlightenments. I am quoting this Tomáš Halík, and he even tell me that I can. These three enlightenments, which he considers the first one. We know everyone in the 17th century. It started in the Central Europe, and then go to France in the 18th century, and the top of that was the French Revolution, and afterwards practically the development to today European Union, because European Union is some continuing by other means of this French Revolution. We should say that, and the mix of these is these Christian values. So this priest, who is a Catholic priest, and he was also advisor to the Pope, Jan Pavel II, for many years, he said that this is very simple. If you misuse good things, then practically you are providing backgrounds for very bad things. And what we should do, his advice is that we should go to the religions, so relegere, so read once more all these background papers our civilization is built on, and then we can build this just society. Because what is the vacation, or what are maybe as well you and many people in Europe are feeling that we miss leadership. We don't know what is good and what is bad. And if every one of us will return to the backgrounds of our civilization, so someone could read the Bible, someone could make other things, then, and you will think about, then you will come to the right answers, and also to the answer to the Sandro-Gozzi response. But before the discussion, I will try to read you a short essay or thesis which I prepared for today. If I compare a mental development of society 30 years ago and today in Prague, I cannot see any particular difference. We have seen enthusiasm in the 90s to rebuild liberal democracy in our country. We succeeded in building institutions, but not in reshaping the interests and the sense of institutions, to create the sense of these new institutions after communist period. We succeeded in building, there was a guiding line, politics out of school. I was in many debates so in that time, and I felt that for teachers it's absolutely uncomfortable that we are speaking about some public institutions and something like that. They don't want to hear about it. And the result is that we have almost 2 generations of our fellow citizens who have problems with fundamentals of playing a role of citizens of Czechia. So thanks to that, we have been forced to accept democratically elected technocratic oligarch, Andrej Babiš, without any inspiration of making something only pro bono of people, covered by unprecedented team of cynic advisors and officials around the President of the Czech Republic, Miloš Zeman, last 8 years. You know that the elections were here about 6 weeks ago, and the coalition of democratic forces has won. But still, we have not a new government, and we shall see what these 2 persons will play a game in the next 6 weeks. By lucky coincidence, that 4 entities, communists, social democrats, nationalists under the party called Tricolor, and secret policeman party called Sword, have not passed over 5% threshold by a small margin. The democratic-centric parties have a secure majority in the parliament, despite they have got only almost 30% support of the population with right to vote. I suppose this is not only a problem in the Czech Republic. A very similar issue was the election of President Macron, if you remember, as well as it would be the re-election of him next May. We hope so that he will be re-elected. Nevertheless, we cannot be negligent to the fact that liberal democracy is attracting less than 1/3 of population. So that is the second mean to respond to Sandro Gozzi, to discuss really evidenced facts and to really think how to develop the democracy, today's democracy, how to make maybe a little bit other shape of democracy for the future in the environment of this technology of artificial intelligence and so on. The main reason I see in a non-systematic communication of solved issue by political or administrative bodies. Lack of explanation what are the means of distribution of public financing of various services from transport through lighting of streets by building of roads, highways and railways play the role too. Because I think many people in our democracies, they don't know why they can, how it's possible that they are going on the pedestrian zones, they can go in enlightened streets and so on. That is, everything is from public money. I do not have a recipe how to organize a better communication, and I understand to ordinary people when they monitor mass or social media and they listen about various kinds of non-conform handling with the taxpayers' money, they vote for populists or extremists of different colors. You know, I like blue, green, or yellow, even orange colors. So I see the issues and ways of their solutions through maybe pink glasses. Most of journalists are picking Michelin's like mushrooms to make an omelette well tasted to consumers or to advertisers with special interest. I think that the contemporary democracy is working on self-destroying. So-called social networks are a pretty enhancement tool to make it. We will have a win of this. Those anonymous multinationals playing with emotions of ordinary people. What can change the trend? Some ideology, better said, some shared interest of a large group of people. The goal to mitigate the climate change, for instance, to stop decreasing of the Gulf Stream speed, to stop increasing of the seawater level, to decrease the number of hurricanes, the freezing of permafrost in Siberia, is very useful for many people. That is why this idea could play a positive role for the future of our democracy. I am convinced of that, as well as I am convenient with all methods leading to the cooperation throughout continents and the whole world. Any confrontation is in the future reality with the specific involvement of the artificial intelligence is very dangerous for humankind surviving. We have to have it in mind to secure the principal right of every woman and man, the right of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan, for your presentation. And I think that were said or asked or raised a lot of questions. And in this moment, I will be really happy if you will directly ask to have the communication like that. So, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is more or less, I think that there are like two main.
Maybe you can introduce a little bit. Yeah, it would be fine to say your name,
Okay.
first name, and where are you from?
And I'm from Spain.
Mhm.
And all this group here. Thank you for the presentation. And I was wondering, so sometimes this like leadership, I guess, which is like one of the key things that we miss nowadays, usually comes up when there's adversity. For example, in the Czech Republic with Prague 77, he came up with a core message and a core idea, and it was silent, deep, and intellectually organized. And people, even if they didn't even know the leaders, they supported them because they knew it was a core message and they wanted to follow the group. So maybe my question was, what could maybe young leaders or young people who would like to face those challenges could do in order to actually create or formulate a core and long-lasting message to make people join the movement?
So it's for me or
It's general, yeah.
It's general. So what to answer? Thank you.
Well, I agree with you. Young people, we should encourage. So it's practically on you. If there will be in that project some final report or something, that is great. If you will give suggestions how to attract the young people to work on democracy, because our generation, we can only advise what is wrong, but what is right for you, it's your.
Well, I think that the problem of leadership is much broader in the sense that search for the leader is first important. The people very often enter some movements because they are fascinated or they like the leader who is able to speak. But sometimes, you know, with the network, social networks, you can use it can all these celebrities, you know, celebritization of that, personalization of the politics is, I would say, I'm not so happy with that, yeah, because you can form a puppet. It looks nice, speak nice, you have advisors, you know PR, how to do, you have to know, you have all the information about what's on social networks, what you can, how can you appeal to which group, and on internet you can organize it that Cambridge Analytica, think about that, will give direct information and they will influence any person that can. And then in this moment you will say, okay, is it a real leader? Is he or she saying what I want to hear, or have I access to other information? Because, you know, the risk of social networks are mostly that you are giving the information you're supposed to, yeah, not the other. So how to think about that? But on the other hand, you need a leader, you need some authority. The crisis of democracy is in some sense a crisis of authority. We have, you know, 200, 300 years ago, who could see a prince or king or someone? And now you have the information, even very private information from everyday life. It's very difficult to have this authority. Well, what I suppose is that young people have to try to work on themselves, to have this knowledge, ability to speak, to have empathy, to understand. They need to develop their critical thinking, raising the questions, sometimes more important than finding the answers. To have a good question is the first step. Why? You know, that's why populists didn't like intellectuals. They're saying something and intellectuals say, why? And they say, oh, all the common people knows why, and you are asking. And the intellectual says, and how? We should. Yeah, this is a problem. So you need to develop critical thinking, trying to find as much as information, and good leader. You can find a good leader as a person that's listening to the others. And speaking about that, he's collaborating and able to collaborate. So this, I would say, is really extremely important to develop this leadership. That's quite different what you can see in the social network or something, that you are there really forming some puppet that is not existing. It's image only that's done by image makers. And to find the real leader with the real authority, it's really difficult. And, you know, historically, these people can be born once in 100 years, for instance. But you don't need to have someone who is really 100% aware. But you have to trust them. We have to make a return back to some values. I would say basic values like truth is something to be said by politicians. Lying is not normal method of political thought. This is one thing that is quite important to accept. To return to other values like pluralism. Pluralism is extremely important to accept pluralism. We are different. We have different interests, youth, young people, students, workers, everybody. And we have to accept that. All these people are part of demos, the people. But if you will accept that, who is the part of the populs, the people, from Latin? In the sense how it's used in populism, it's defined. Only these people are part of populs, and all the others with different eyes or different skin or different ideas, different religions, are not part of populs. This is the difference between democracy, that's accepting pluralism, and populism, that's having core, no one else can be part of that. But when, again, I'm sure I'm professor teaching the students, so I got somewhere else, but this is connected with that. You know, when watching for the leaders, you can find to say, I say my opinion, but it's not easy. There was another question. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to, because Sandro has raised the issue of the fact that we need a wider deepening in the European Union. And there are many issues like unanimity, going from unanimity to political majority in foreign affairs, or initiative legislative to the European Parliament, fiscal union, finish with fiscal heavens, I don't know. Many issues and many ways in which we could deepen the European Union. However, it's hard to see how could we do that with unanimity. So I wanted to ask you about the multi-speed European Union, because I heard about it more before. I haven't mainly heard about it that much. And I wanted to ask if it could be a possibility to have an inner circle within the European Union, which could raise an incentive for the other countries to meet certain criteria if they wanted to join this inner circle, who is advancing faster towards a European army or to certain issues which are going to be really hard to achieve if we have to agree, say, 27 countries on certain issues. So how about an inner circle within the European Union to advance on certain issues which we are going to be blockaded?
Yeah, it's understandable. I will tell you something. I already in 2009 told to my fellows in Union of European Federalists, don't wait for us. Make yourself this inner circle, this core of the European Union. Because there is a very simple idea. If there will be established this core, this inner circle, then the others will want to jump inside. If we have nothing, and we have nothing, in fact, we can tell it here, we have nothing. To have anything, we should really use this Conference on the Future of Europe for these initiatives, which are leading to change of treaties. But in that way, you mentioned that nobody is kicking off, but only some of those members could be in that superclub. And the others should all make changes in their countries to develop the mind, as I spoke about it. Practically, it's absolutely catastrophic situation here because nobody worked systematic on the minds of people and on their education in European affairs. And this is even the situation I know from inside in ministries, that officials in ministries, they don't know why they are doing what they are doing. So, so everything is even much better going that we can imagine if we are thinking about all these particulars from which we are making the reality. So that I said already in 2009, please go ahead, don't wait for the Central Europe. And it was not realized. So I think the result is that this going nowhere came more from that Central Europe to the Western Europe and to Italy, for example. But Italy is practically also part of Central Europe. Then to go something progressive from the West to the East, and that is a problem. Only this LGBT plus went from West to the East and Central Europe, and it was that misuse of the traditional values by this Polish and Hungarian leadership to say we are the model. And even Vladimir Putin is telling that Christianity is protected by this Russia, Poland, and Hungary. So with this procrastination of 2 decades, we made the space for these very evil things, which are done by leaders, but unfortunately leaders on the other side of the moon than we want to be.
Yeah.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your presentations. I will start with probably trying to give some ideas and answers to the question raised by Mr. Sandro. This is about why and how Hungary and Poland appeared where they are now. And I very much agree with you when you say that it didn't happen out of the blue. Actually, there were signs, and we can, like, looking back, we can definitely see it. So from my point of view, just as some of the ideas I had about this question, as for Poland, it is very much a classical nation state, for which the question of its sovereignty remains a really important one. So would you say that the current government is playing and manipulating with this sensitive question while pushing its agenda? And in this case, what to do and how to solve this issue? And the second part is about Hungary, which can say experiences a lot of influence from outside, let's say economic influence from China or influence on the energy sphere from Russia. Then in this case, also the question is how to deal with it, because it's a question also to the EU. You cannot, how to be attractive, because it's not just a question of being Mr. Orban or anyone else. So it's like a more general issue.
You know, it's rather complicated and to find and to explain the question very briefly, and there are many reasons why that happened. It is interesting that the development in Poland and Hungary when going through the beginning of 90s was quite very similar in some sense, that they were the first who started. They were the most liberal communist regimes in in that space. There was much rigid communism here in Czechoslovakia comparing with Poland and Hungary. And then they did 3-4 years after, post-communists in both countries won the plurality of the votes, not majority, but the plurality of the votes, because of some sense negative attitude for the acceptance of the first steps, deterioration of economic situation that there was going down standard of living. Then they started to grow, but also with a corruption and many problems, and in corruption scandals finished traditional political parties. There was total destruction of party system. And they came new atypical party systems that were very difficult to say whether they are conservatives, liberals, social democrats, what we can see in Western Europe. And in that moment, in Poland grew this Law and Justice Party, because before it was Party of Polish Families, very much religious, very strongly conservative, going and returning back to very strong Catholicism. That was all the time part of Polish identity. The Poles are Irish, they are Catholics, like it's important. And it went, although the society in Poland, when there are public opinion polls, there is much higher support of European Union than in Czech Republic. There's very high support of European Union. In Hungary, the Orban is a tragedy, taking it as a leader. A young Democrat who was fighting in 1989 revolution, liberal. Yeah, he was Fidesz, was a party of young Democrats that was also saying there cannot be no one older than 35 years because everyone who is older than 35 has to be connected with the communists and so on. Well, then they finished with this stuff, and now we found Hungary as different. And you know what's extremely interesting, that in fight against European Union, not acceptance, there is a Russian card. Why Russian card? Hungarians were strongly anti-Russian all their history. 1848, it was Russian forces who defeated the revolution of the 19th century. After World War II, the revolution 1956, bloody revolution that was really defeated by Soviet tanks. And there is a very strong Russian card. Why? There is very strong activity, for instance, of Hungary in Western Ukraine. That was historically some period of time part. And they love the idea of disintegrated Ukraine. That's why Putin is very much accepted. And they play this role of many minorities in all the Central European countries, because Hungary was a big part, and then there are Hungarians in Slovakia, in Serbia, in Austria, in Romania, in Ukraine. We're giving specific passports to Ukraine, in Ukraine. It's not very much described here, but this happened. So again, no party system that was destroyed because of corruption in Social Democratic Party and total collapse of the parties. And then one leader who could, with populist appeal, got the support. It's combination of nationalism that's using European Union is guilty for everything. That's probably, and we do have our sovereignty. This is very popular slogan that not understanding what does it mean sovereignty in sense. So it's used against European Union. On the other hand, the fear from otherness is typical for Central and Eastern. When I was a child in the classroom, I have never seen a foreigner in the classroom. Even my children have not seen foreigner when they were on the basic school in the classroom. Where's the classrooms now? And where's them in Western Europe? So this is the fear for something that they don't know, they do not have experience with. So they can play this nationalist cards with the immigrants, everything, and in Poland with the values. For them, Brussels means Protestants or something like that, or even there, although Belgium is Catholic. But it is this thing used as an argument. But on the other hand, there is a great part of inhabitants who are really liberals. We can civic platform other, but the winners were the other side with the populist appeal. So but there are many reasons. It's not really answering.
Yes, I very agree. I only want to add that we know that in Poland will be elections in 2 years, in Hungary in 1 year. So there will be the solution. So practically, what is my advice to the European institution, European Commission, Sandra Gozin, European Parliament? Only wait and see and do everything not to destroy what we did. And maybe what could be the second thing to do is to work on that inner circle, if we shall call it core of the union, or inner circle, or other things. But inner circle is a very nice term of not understanding what we are doing. So if these people, like it was Crocodile Group in Spinelli-Tyne and so on, to renew, so it is this advice of the Bajar to rethink what we already know. So make Crocodile Group #2 and develop, if with 7 states, 10 states, 13 states, the real federal state of Europe. If it could be on the Winston Churchill idea, this United States of Europe. It's not, it's only name, or political union, or defense union, but of only those states who are in that stage of development, they will be a member in that time. And I can guarantee to everyone that 90% of other states will be the members of this back in 10 years later. So to make that idea of founding fathers once more, but accommodated to this period of this climate change, artificial intelligence, new resources of energy, these feelings of people that the democracy should be, at least in some part, participating democracy, and so on and so on. And this is, we know everything. I am in Union of European Federalists since 2001. And I think since 2002, we spoke of all these themes, what we are speaking now. And even I can tell you that from Prague, we brought a proposal, a complex proposal in 2003 with the goal to make it 2014 as some legal documents, if you want constitutional documents, and to function at least 2019, because you know that the time is all the time is quite long for any reform. But if we don't start now, we shall have the results years after. So if we shall start now, we can really reform everything by 2040. By 2050 with guarantee. But if we shall not start, then we can witness maybe collapse of union in 4 or 5 years.
So I wanted to ask a question. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Because this will be the last round, so we can combine. So tell your question, and then if anyone else will, and we shall answer together.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. My name is Lasha, and I'm from Georgia. I'll have a question about more context. I will have more contextual question. From 1989, the era of Soviet Union was like ending, and there was a lot of revolutions in the area of Eastern Europe. In this area, there was a lot of conflicts after the revolutions in these countries after the end of the Soviet Union. There was not only the conflicts, but economic problems and extra. But but as a history, I see Prague that it's in the Czechia is a different way of development. So there was also Velvet Revolution, and Czechia managed all the things in a positive way, and hit by chance or perhaps a chance. And so my question is about that from your point of view, why Czech Republic managed to transmit or just make the situation in a better condition compared with in other countries. Now and for maintaining the compass on the west side as well. And also I have a second question. Before Czech Republic joined the European Union, before what was your point of view or just opinion about the union? You know, we just ended the Soviet Union, and now we are joining the European Union. How we start? What will be that outcomes in the negative words? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Anyone else would like to ask some question to him? So if not, would you like to start with the answers? You know, it is for historians will be quite difficult to compare so-called colored revolutions that were in Georgia and that were in Ukraine and other things, and why, well, were they victorious or not? But the results after was a very, very strong frustration and many, many complications that didn't really change the system. They changed some part of the elite, and it was probably after all conflict of some political groups and elites in this that took support of some public, but in reality the results were not mostly very positive or for not long term. Yeah, changes. Well, why that revolution was successful in the Czech Republic? You know, there is also frustration. The fact that it was velvet revolution, thanks God, because I think that it's very important not to have a bloody revolutions that then have victims and, you know, people. Partly it could be said that there was a role of President Václav Havel that was quite famous, and he, in some sense, accepted just non-violence, not thinking, and had authority. He had really authority abroad as a writer and so on. On the other hand, he was not a very man of power, yeah, to think about what are the power positions and so on. He was writer, philosopher. And also historically, we were more part of Western Europe traditionally. So this is one thing. Second, I don't think that there was really thinking about returning back from Soviet, you know, getting from Soviet Union, we are going to European Union. In fact, these arguments are really, I would say, marginal in the sense that is used only by populist, really populist, maybe radical right, like parties, Eurosceptic. But the mainstream parties, even those who are critical to European Union, are not using that, are not using this argument. Yeah, it's really, I would say, minority, and this radical streams, very populist, that are appealing to uneducated people and giving these examples. It have no resonance. It's the other thing is that the way how European Union is presented, and I think this is very important even if you are speaking about this inner circle. What's the reason why we are in European Union? Mm-hmm. Mostly it is developed, we shall get money. You know, it's all the time how many money we shall get and how successful were our negotiators. Once I spoke to people who are doing in Europe, taking people who are coming from European countries and trying to get job in Europe, and they said Czechs are not very successful. And I said, why? What's the reason? They are quite educated. They are educated. They know languages, everything. But all the time they are asking us what will be conditions for them to work there. But they are never saying what they can do, what can be useful for the institutions they want to work in. So it is this philosophy. We are members of something because we will have advantage. But if you are even getting married, you have advantages and disadvantages. You have a nice pleasure moments, but also tragic. If you are a member of something, and this story of this tale of Europe has never been told, this fairy tale. But it is important to know that if you are a member of something, you are getting something, you are losing something. You have to accept the other. You have to play according to the rules. And this is something important for deepening of the institutions and so on, that I would agree. And you have to know that you cannot be winner all the time. And I think this is quite important. What's message for Central European countries? You are part of that. You can participate, you can vote, you can discuss, and you have to use the rules. But we are using rules even inside only when it is for those who are in power. Okay, if it's not okay, they can vote those. And this cannot be members. This